line, you can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today, where we're going to have some fun and we're going to switch it up here just a little bit. We're always looking for ways to make content more interesting, right? We don't want to become boring. We don't want to become repetitive. We want to make sure we supply different takes on different things in different types of ways, right? Well, that is what today is all about. We're talking about some of the safest running backs here in 2021 fantasy football, but the question we need to ask ourselves that we will answer before we get into these names is, what does it take to be a safe running back? Do we even understand that, or do we just list names because it fits a national narrative? No, we're going to dig a little bit deeper and go into some numbers and see if we can really find some of those safer options here this year. Real quick though, before we get into it, got 2 items to take care of. The first thing, Jacob Fulton, happy 7th birthday. Your dad left us a comment on a recent video and said, hey man, it'd be cool if you could give my little boy a shout out. Well, Jacob, happy birthday from all of us here at the Fantasy Headliners. Keep killing it there, little man. We appreciate you and your dad's support. What about a free draft guide? Another member of Headliner Nation stepped up, bought an additional draft guide to his own just to give away to this community, which is super awesome to see people paying it forward. So Chris Hoffpower has a draft guide to give away. Leave a comment down below if you're interested in winning one, and I'll pick a random winner in a video next week to give that away. We're dropping it here, like probably at the time this video is coming up. If it hasn't dropped already, it's coming within hours. So make sure you get ready for that. But now let's head in to see, what does it really take to be a safer running back here in fantasy football in 2021? And when it comes down to it, this is really what we need to look at to establish who some of these safe running backs are in 2021. We need them to be on the field, right? Well, in order for them to be on the field, how do we grade that? Well, we can find out how many average games they play per year and kind of take into account that injury factor. What about having them touch the football? I mean, that's kind of important, right? How many average touches are they getting per game? How about we need them to actually do something with those touches, right? That's great that they're getting the football, but are they going anywhere with it? Well, we can look at average yards gained per touch on that one. What about fantasy points, right? Do those touches, do those statistical achievements, do they really give us our bang for our buck when it comes to fantasy points? We can figure out, fantasy points per game. So let's go ahead and take a look. And this is where it's going to get interesting, because I could have picked like 5 or 10 guys, but that gets boring. Let's talk about the current top 30 running backs as of right now, as far as ADP goes. Now, I did go in and I removed the rookies. Why did I do that? Well, they have no statistical background in the NFL, so I can't call someone safe if I've never seen them play in the NFL. So here's the list of names. We have the top 30, like I said, as far as ADP minus the rookies. So let's go ahead and dive into our first metric here, which is going to be average games played per year. All right, so this is how we're going to do it. We're going to look at the top 12, because once I put the top 30 on here with their ranks and scores and stats, it got to be way too jumbled and it was almost impossible to figure out. So what I'll do is at the end of the episode, I'll throw up the spreadsheet that I used to come up with all these so you can kind of see where everybody finished in each category. But for right now, we're trying to find the tops, right? So I got the top 12 here on the screen, and what I did in that spreadsheet is I assigned everybody a number 1 through 30, depending on where they finished in that category. We'll total up all the numbers between these categories at the end and see who sits atop of the list. So we're going to start off here with the average games played per year. And not too many shocks here, right? Derrick Henry sits atop the list. Why? Dude gonna play football on Sundays. His workload may be huge, but it's been huge for years, and dude continues to trot out there every single week and dish out pain, averaging just about 16 games a year, right? I believe he's only missed 1 in the past 3 years. David Montgomery right there, same with Ezekiel Elliott. They're staying on the field. Chase Edmonds, kind of a small sample size, right? But he's still averaging 15 games a year. Same with Mike Davis, J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, right? Nick Chubb missed a quarter of the season last year. Was really the first significant time that he's missed in his NFL career, and still finished as a top 10 running back. What would he have finished had he not missed those games? Dude, top 3, top 4 maybe? So Nick Chubb averaging right around 15 games a year. Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, and Antonio Gibson rounding out the top 12 here as far as average games played per year. But now that we can determine who's staying on the field there in the top 12, What about average touches per game? What running backs finished inside the top 12 in that metric? And here's what's crazy about this. Out of all 30 running backs we talked about, only 7 of them averaging 20 plus touches a week. And we say it here all the time, right? You can't score fantasy points if you're not touching the football. 20 plus touches a week is enough to give me straight chub in fantasy football, because then I know I'm getting those opportunities on a weekly basis. So Christian McCaffrey, yeah, we know he's touching the ball a lot, 23 times a game on average. But right behind him, Ezekiel Elliott. The involvement in the passing game really helped Zeke. What about Dalvin Cook? He's getting better and better as his career progresses. He's at 21, Saquon Barkley at 20, and then everybody's favorite, Joe Mixon, sitting right there at 20 touches a week as well, along with Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry. Now, you have to remember, though, as we go through these graphics, not everything will be identical from 2020, 2019, 2018. In 2021, things are different. Take Josh Jacobs, for example, here. Is he still going to get 20 touches a week because of the addition of Kenyon Drake? It causes doubt. It causes speculation, right? That's just something we need to keep in the back of our mind when we're looking at this, because maybe you're on the clock and you need to decide which guy are you going to take. And maybe it's a deciding factor like this that you actually use to make that decision. So those are just different things that you need to pay attention to when we're going through these graphics. Finish it out, you got Chris Carson, David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, and then playoff Lenny, Leonard Fournette. His numbers being elevated a little bit there because of the end of season there in Tampa Bay. Really, overall, as a whole, wasn't used a whole lot, but that's because they got Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn. Now they've added Gio Bernard, so touches are going to be a little bit difficult in that backfield. But after they touch the ball, what do they do with it, right? How many yards are they gaining per touch? Well, that's the next thing we're going to look at. And this is where we're going to see a few different names, right? Some names we haven't seen in some of the previous graphics, like an Austin Eckler, number 1 on the list. What about J.K. Dobbins finishing number 2? Both those guys over 6 yards per touch. Why are they so much higher than so many people? They're not getting the touches. Well, it's because they're super efficient, and they're heavily involved in the passing game, right? They're going to be able to get those big chunks of yards with screen plays and rollouts and checkdowns to really boost those averages. They're not being asked to run between the tackles as much as some of these other guys. Same thing with Raheem Mostert. We know we've seen him line up in the slot at times. Alvin Kamara, big reception guy. Aaron Jones, known for some big chunks in the receiving game. Same with Miles Sanders, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. Are you noticing a trend here, right? The guys who are gaining the most yards per touch are the ones that are more involved in the passing game in the NFL. They're getting volume and they're receiving passing work, and that's what really boosts them up the list. One name, though, that really kind of stands out to me on here is Nick Chubb, right? Everybody wants to say that I'm just a Chubb truther. Well, here's the deal. Nick Chubb is among the league leaders in yards gained per touch, and we just talked about how those numbers are inflated by pass catching. What does Nick Chubb not do? He does not get overly involved in the passing game, and yet the guy is still on this list because he makes things happen on the ground, big chunk plays and touchdowns. Absolutely love it. And it's kind of proof to see him here in this type of metric, especially with Kareem Hunt, right? Kareem Hunt, known for the guy in that offense that's going to get the majority of the pass catching work out of the backfield. He's right there with Chubb, right at 5.5, followed by DeAndre Swift. So after we see how many yards we're gaining with these touches, how many fantasy points per game is this translating to? Let's go ahead and look at that one here next. And this is where we see some usual suspects at the beginning, right? The Christian McCaffreys, right? We know he was getting more touches than anybody. What about Alvin Kamara? I mean, those numbers definitely inflated by the pass catching aspect. Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Zeke Elliott, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon finishing number 8, which is a little bit surprising, right? We talked about Melvin in a video last week saying that what if we're wrong, right? What if we're wrong and Javonte Williams doesn't get, 40, 50% of that work, and they do give it to Melvin Gordon in the last year of a deal? I mean, this is a guy that's proven that he can put up some decent points if given the opportunity. He's not overly efficient, but if the touches are there, he can produce. Joe Mixon, averaging over 14.8 fantasy points per game. Saquon Barkley, and then James Conner and Myles Gaskin. Everybody wants to hate on James Conner. Nobody thinks he's going to last more than 10 games. I personally think he goes over 10 games. Does he play all season? No, probably not, but very few guys will. 14.5 fantasy points per game, though, I will take if he can slide into that Kenyon Drake role in Arizona. Myles Gaskin sounds like he's going to get a fairly good opportunity in Miami. Still has a couple names to worry about with Salvin Ahmed and Malcolm Brown there now, but Myles Gaskin is the leader there in that backfield. So let's go ahead, and now that we'll sort it all out, we've gone through those metrics. We've assigned everybody a number 1 through 30 in each one of them, depending on where they ranked. And here are the final standings that it came up with. And like I said at the beginning, after I show these standings, I'll show you the actual overall spreadsheet that I use, and we'll kind of look at it here so you can see it with everything all in one spot. For the final standings, number 1, Alvin Kamara, right? I mean, Alvin Kamara about a model of consistency. The issue with Kamara this year is what quarterback is it? Is it Taysom Hill? Is it Jameis Winston? Is it a mixture of both? Either way, they're going to have to figure out a way to get Alvin Kamara involved, and right now he's number 1 on this list. Number 2 isn't a surprise, right? We talk about Derrick Henry and then Ezekiel Elliott. Jonathan Taylor, another guy who had some great numbers in his first year, started off slow but really came on strong. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb finishing here number 8, followed by Saquon Barkley, and then it gets a little weird, right? Josh Jacobs sitting at number 10. Things have changed for Josh Jacobs, but like I said in that earlier video as well with him, if we're wrong, and Kenyon Drake is just there to help bolster the passing game, which is not something that has overly inflated the stats of Josh Jacobs, we're getting ourselves a great pick at the value that he's falling in drafts. So that's definitely a name that I've started to pay a lot more attention to here in the last week and a half or so. Then followed by Miles Sanders. More questions there, right? They got 42 running backs on the depth chart in Philadelphia. They should commit to Miles Sanders, but do they make the right decision? It's a question mark, right? If they do, Miles Sanders shows that he could be a safe option if given the opportunity. And then Austin Eckler. Hate to see Austin Eckler go down with an injury last year, but the numbers that he puts up in the passing game and now a high-powered offense behind an improved offensive line, Austin Eckler definitely deserves to be in that talk of somebody you consider end of first, beginning of second, depending on your league size, as somebody who could have a great year. So here's the overall spreadsheet that I used. And you can see here if it's highlighted in yellow, it's just 2020 because they were rookies. If it's just green, they only got 2 years to go off of, so they're highlighted a little bit differently. Obviously, I can't pull stats from a year that they didn't play. But here's a few of the key takeaways in my opinion. What about J.K. Dobbins? So you look at J.K. Dobbins, he was second to last in touches per game. However, he was almost he finished third overall, 29th, 29 total points and yards per touch. So that tells me that if we increase the touches based off of the efficiency we got, we could have some big numbers for J.K. Dobbins. Well, no more Mark Ingram, and we know they're going to run a lot. That piques my interest a lot for J.K. Dobbins. What about Miles Sanders? Yards per touch, 5.7. They got to get this guy involved more because he's only getting 15 touches on average a game. You bump that up to 18, maybe even 19. Involve him in the passing game, looking for some big numbers there. Austin Eckler, same thing, right? Not very many touches, averaging 13.47 touches, but finished first. Overall, 30 possible points out of 30 possible points with 6.3 yards per touch. You give him more touches, he's putting up big numbers. Chris Carson, games played. I mean, that's a little bit, I think of Chris Carson, I think of missing a lot of time. He's averaging right around 14 games a year, which is not bad. Josh Jacobs, we talked about there, right? He's got the touches, not really getting the yards per touch so much, so he needs the volume, right? If he loses the volume, he loses the production, that'll hurt. Nick Chubb finishing as high as he did overall, along with Jonathan Taylor as a rookie. He finished, 4th overall on this list. And then Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, absolutely killing it. There's only 2 guys on this list that finished top 10 in all 4 categories. That was Alvin Kamara and Jonathan Taylor. And then there was only 2 guys that finished in the top 15 in all categories. That was Derrick Henry and our boy Nick Chubb. So when you're looking at these graphs, who are the safest guys in my mind? Well, you got Kamara, JT, Henry, and Chubb. I mean, on that list, Ezekiel Elliott's also going to stand out. Christian McCaffrey is going to be up there. But here's the deal. You're going to have tough decisions to make. And when you can break it down like this and find, okay, which guys are going to be on the field for me and what are they going to do with their touches and how many touches are they going to get, you can really begin to make those informed decisions during your fantasy football draft. The point of this video is not to listen to Jake talk and tell you which guys it will be. Why is that? It's because Jake cannot see the future and neither can any other damn fantasy analyst on the earth. So don't go out there and just take somebody's opinion for face value. Take the information that you're supplied, which is what we're going to do over here. We're going to supply you with everything. We will give you our opinion, but now you have all the answers to the test, right? You have all the information. You have your cheat sheet. You have your notes. You have your For Dummies guide. Whatever you want to call it, We're giving you that information here on this channel so you can make the best decision for your team in your fantasy football league. It's not our team to manage, right? And this is where these types of videos, these types of breakdowns are going to be super beneficial to you when your fantasy football draft comes around. But we want to know what you think. How do you like looking at stats a little bit differently, right? Would you rather me just sit here and put a picture of a player up and say, this is why I like this guy? No, let's go through it all and then compare them with everybody else to see what is the big difference with these guys. Which guys should I target? Which guys should I question a little bit more during your fantasy football draft? Leave those comments down below, because as you can see, in most of our recent videos here over the last month or so, we're trying to get to almost every comment on every video. We do the best we possibly can while still leaving, daily videos out there for you on YouTube. But hopefully you guys have a great day. I'm looking forward to the feedback on this. Do me a favor, if you enjoy the content, make sure you hit that like button, because the likes really help us out here on YouTube, and we greatly appreciate that support. Pick up your draft guide, thefantasyheadliners.com. We're looking forward to helping everybody dominate in 2021. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you later.